Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I work as a financial consultant, which means I travel a lot for business. Most of my clients are big banks and investment firms that need help with their systems and processes. I've been doing this for about 5 years when this whole mess happened. My company had landed a contract with a major bank in Philadelphia, not one of the huge ones you see advertised everywhere, but still a significant regional player with lots of locations. The project was expected to take several months, with me flying down every few weeks to work on site with their team. It was exactly the kind of steady, high-paying work that made all the airport hassles worth it. The bank had been great to work with from day one. They set up everything for my trips, flights, hotel, and transportation. They had a preferred cab company they used for all their business travelers, contractors, and consultants. During my first few trips, everything went smoothly. The drivers were professional, the cars were clean, and I never had any issues. That Friday started like any other. I'd wrapped up a successful week of meetings and presentations. The new system implementation was ahead of schedule, and everyone seemed happy with the progress. I was looking forward to getting home for the weekend when the bank's travel coordinator called to let me know my cab would arrive in 20 minutes. I grabbed my luggage and headed downstairs to wait. The same cab company pulled up, but something felt different this time. The driver barely acknowledged me when I got in and seemed more interested in his phone than driving safely. I politely asked him to focus on the road instead of his phone. The driver just grunted and kept looking at his device. I tried to ignore it, but his driving was making me nervous. He was drifting between lanes and not maintaining a safe distance from other cars. A few miles from the hotel, it happened. The driver rear-ended another car at a red light. It wasn't a high-speed crash, but it was hard enough to jolt us both and send my laptop bag flying to the floor. The driver cursed and complained that this was going to mess up his whole day. I asked if he was okay and whether we should call the police. He said we had to call them, but acted like the whole thing was just a huge inconvenience for him. Both drivers pulled over to exchange information. The other driver was understandably upset, and I could see damage to both vehicles. I knew I'd have to give a statement to the police since I was a witness to what happened. While we waited for the cops, I noticed something that made my blood boil. The taxi meter was still running. We'd been sitting there for 15 minutes, and this guy was still charging me for time spent dealing with his accident. I pointed out that the meter was still running and told him he needed to turn it off. He claimed it was company policy that the meter runs until I get out of the cab. I said it was ridiculous that I should be charged for his accident. He just shrugged and said he didn't make the rules. The police arrived about 30 minutes later. The officer took statements from everyone involved and seemed concerned when he noticed I had a black eye from an unrelated incident earlier in the week. I assured him it wasn't from the accident and that I just wanted to get to the airport. The officer asked if I was sure I was okay because the black eye looked pretty fresh. I explained it was from something else earlier in the week and that I was fine, just needed to catch my flight. The whole process took nearly an hour. By the time everything was sorted out, I was definitely going to miss my original flight. The cab company sent another driver to pick me up, but the damage was done. The new driver seemed nice enough at first. He apologized for what happened and said he'd do his best to get me to the airport quickly. But when we arrived, he hit me with something unexpected. The new driver told me the fare would be $45 for his ride plus the $68 from the first cab. I asked him what he meant. Did he want me to pay for both rides? He explained that the owner said I had to pay for both meters because it was company policy. I told him that his company's driver had caused an accident because he was distracted by his phone, and now they wanted me to pay extra for that. The driver apologized but said those were his instructions from the owner. I was furious. Here I was having to deal with missing my flight because of their driver's negligence, and they wanted to charge me extra for the privilege. But I kept my cool and paid both fares, though I made my feelings clear. I told the driver that if they hadn't charged me for that first ride, I would have given him a $20 tip. But since they were being unreasonable about this, he was getting nothing. He said he understood I was upset but that he just followed orders. The whole experience got me thinking about something important. This wasn't just about the money, it was about principle. The cab company had shown complete disregard for customer service and basic decency, but I realized I might be in a position to do something about it. The bank I was consulting for used this cab company exclusively for all their business travel needs. They probably spent thousands of dollars every month on transportation for employees, contractors, consultants, and visiting clients. If I could convince them to switch companies, it would hurt the cab company where it mattered most. I waited until Monday morning to make my move. I called my main contact at the bank, someone I'd worked with closely for months and who trusted my judgment. I explained that I'd had a terrible experience with their cab company on Friday. I told them how one of their drivers had caused an accident while distracted, and then they tried to charge me for both the original fare and the replacement ride. My contact said that was completely unacceptable and asked if I was okay. I told them I was fine, but that it made me realize this company didn't prioritize passenger safety or basic customer service. I mentioned that I was supposed to be back in 2 weeks and would prefer to use a different transportation service. My contact was appalled by what had happened to me. They said they would find me another company immediately and began making arrangements right away. My contact was true to their word. They not only arranged alternative transportation for my next visit, but also began the process of switching the bank's entire transportation contract. They reached out to several reputable cab companies and ultimately selected one with better safety records and customer service policies. The transition happened faster than I expected. Within 2 weeks, the bank had completely severed ties with the original cab company. All employees, contractors, consultants, and visiting clients would now use the new service exclusively. When I returned to Philadelphia, the difference was immediately obvious. The new cab company was professional, courteous, and reliable. The driver who picked me up was friendly and focused entirely on safe driving. The car was immaculate, and the whole experience was what business transportation should be. Over the following months, I heard through my contact at the bank that the original cab company was struggling. Losing the bank's contract had been a significant blow to their revenue, but the damage didn't stop there. Word spreads quickly in business circles, especially about poor service. Other companies in the area began hearing about the cab company's unprofessional practices. The story of charging a passenger for an accident caused by their own driver's negligence didn't reflect well on their business ethics. Several other businesses started reconsidering their transportation arrangements. The cab company's reputation continued to deteriorate. They lost additional contracts with hotels, other banks, and corporate clients who valued reliability and customer service. Their fleet started looking shabby when they cut costs to stay afloat. Drivers began leaving for better opportunities with more reputable companies. During one of my later visits to Philadelphia, I happened to see one of their cabs broken down on the side of the road. It was dirty, dented, and looked like it hadn't been maintained properly. The sight gave me a sense of satisfaction that things had worked out fairly. The new cab company, meanwhile, was thriving. They'd gained not just the bank's business but several other major clients who appreciated their professionalism and reliability. They invested in newer vehicles, better training for drivers, and improved customer service protocols. My contact at the bank mentioned that other consultants and business travelers consistently praised the new transportation service. The bank was so satisfied that they recommended the company to their business partners and affiliates in the area. 6 months later, I heard the original cab company had gone out of business entirely. Their remaining drivers had found work with better companies, and their fleet was sold off to pay debts. This happened several years ago when I was still in high school. I was living what I can only describe as hell on earth. I had no friends, no support system, nothing that a normal teenager would want or need. The school I attended was an international school in Germany, packed with entitled and elitist kids who made my life even worse than it already was. I'm a big girl, 6 feet 3 inches tall and built like a tree. People always assumed I was tough because of my size, but I wasn't violent at all. I just looked intimidating, which my bullies used against me. They knew I wouldn't fight back physically, so they felt safe tormenting me daily. The bullying was relentless. They made fun of my height, my appearance, my erratic behavior caused by my ADHD, and even things I had done years earlier when I was much younger. Once I had bitten a kid in self-defense, and I used to bite my thumb when stressed, which they said looked like I was sucking it. These bullies brought up everything they could to humiliate me. I was completely ostracized from school life. No lunch groups, no clubs, no activities where people gathered. I lived on the fringe of everything, but eventually I got comfortable with being alone. I stopped expecting friendships or depending on anyone. Then something strange started happening. People who had never said a kind word to me in my life suddenly began talking to me like we were friends. Kids I had never even spoken to before were acting buddy-buddy with me. Being the guarded, paranoid teenager I was, I played it off awkwardly and went about my business, but it felt wrong. This went on for about 3 to 4 weeks until one day I was cornered in the schoolyard. I was sitting by a tree reading a book when a guy from the year above me approached me. He demanded to know why I was ignoring him. I told him plainly that I didn't like him, had never liked him, and we didn't know each other beyond him bullying me in previous years. He brushed off my concerns, saying that was all in the past and didn't matter anymore. He wanted to know why I wouldn't just accept him and stop ignoring me. I thought this guy was asking me out on a date. I panicked completely, thinking he was trying to force me into some kind of relationship. I jumped up and told him he was crazy, that there was no way I would date him. He looked confused and asked what I was talking about. He clarified that he meant accepting his friend request on the social network, not dating him. I stared at him, still confused, and told him I hadn't gotten any friend request. He said he would send it again and apologized before walking off casually, like he hadn't just cornered me against a tree in public. There were other students around, staring at me with wide eyes. I memorized every single face. This same scenario kept happening over the next week. Different bullies and people I had never known existed were approaching me about this mysterious social media profile. My paranoia grew stronger each day until I finally decided to check the website myself. There it was, a profile with my name on it, my school pictures, photos from class trips, even pictures my parents had posted on their accounts with everyone else cropped out. My age, height, and name were all there, but thankfully no birth date or other sensitive information. I felt completely destroyed, but then something else sparked inside me, the desire for revenge. I knew exactly who had been badgering me about this fake profile. I knew which of my bullies were most active on social media. I knew their friend groups. Being constantly on guard had made me extremely observant of everyone around me. I started working with my dad to compile evidence. He did photo editing for his nature photography and knew computers well. We spent 2 weeks putting together a comprehensive file with timestamps showing all the pictures that had been stolen and used without my permission. Instead of going to the school counselor, who had previously told me to just forget that I was being bullied, I took everything straight to the principal. This was the same man who had once told me to my face that maybe I should fail myself for the year because I obviously wasn't cut out for school yet. He said this because I had trouble following classes where I was sometimes attacked, and I couldn't do homework because bringing school stress home was unbearable. The principal looked at all our evidence and laughed it off as a harmless prank. He said my identity being stolen and used on social media was no big deal. He said this to my face with my dad sitting right there in the room. While I sat in stunned silence, my dad went on a rant about how identity theft wasn't harmless and that no school principal should react to a student's distress this way. The principal then suggested that if it bothered us so much, we could just move schools. This was the only international school anywhere near where we lived. The next closest one would have been at least a 2-hour round-trip commute. He knew moving wasn't an option, but he just didn't care. My dad and I left that meeting with him looking furious and me feeling weak and defeated. Then my dad asked if I knew who was behind the fake profile. I told him I didn't know exactly, but I knew who had approached me about it first and who their friends were. He suggested we go to the police. I was terrified at the thought, but I also desperately wanted this nightmare to end, so I agreed. The evidence we had meticulously compiled along with my detailed testimony that I never created or wanted that profile was enough for the police chief to open an investigation into identity fraud. My father's testimony about the principal's negligence was also enough to have the police work with the school's administrative board to investigate the principal. I helped the police with detailed descriptions of everyone who had approached me about the fake profile. I told them about all the smaller incidents and everything the principal had said to me over the years, including his comment about me not being fit for the school. I was finally able to speak out about everything my bullies had done, not just the identity theft. The investigating officers seemed motivated to dig deeper and even brought in a cyber consultant to track who created the account. 2 weeks later, the guy who had first approached me came up to me again. This time his tone was barely sarcastic when he asked why I had stopped being active on the social network. I told him I had never been active there. He stepped closer, trying to block my path, and pressed me about how I had been talking to people for weeks, but then suddenly stopped. Every alarm bell in my head went off. I told him the same thing, that I had never been active on the site and never wanted to be. Then I elbowed past him when he tried to block me. Several days later, my name was called over the school intercom system to report to the director's office. I called my dad on the way there, and he told me he was already there. I walked there with dread, not knowing what to expect. When I entered the office, I saw my dad standing next to a police officer. The director was sitting at his desk. The principal was standing in front of the desk looking smug. 3 students and their parents were also in the room. One mother looked like she wanted to murder someone, one father looked very defeated, and another mother looked extremely smug. I realized this was a disciplinary meeting and I smiled. The police officer looked at the director, who looked at my dad, who nodded to me. I was asked to tell my story again. I explained everything: the fake online account, the bullying, and the principal's repeated statements that I wasn't fit for the school. The police officer then revealed that they had evidence showing these 3 students had worked together to create the fake account. He said the parents could be charged with negligence and the kids could be tried as minors for identity theft if I chose to press charges. The smug mother then tried to manipulate me by saying that the kids had been nicer to me because of the fake account and that I should just let them be kids. The principal sat there looking defeated. He was subsequently fired and told to vacate his office and leave the premises immediately. My dad wanted to say something to the woman, but I beat him to it. I felt pure joy in my heart when I told her that I would also like to be a kid whose likeness wasn't used online without me knowing or wanting it there. I said I would like to not have to fear for my life and worry about what people think of me, but since she didn't care about that, why should I listen to her? I turned to the police officer and told him we wanted to press charges. More police officers came in, and the parents and kids were all taken away. I stayed at school that day, and something amazing happened. Some people actually looked at me like I was a hero, while others resented me forever. I have never regretted suing those people and getting the principal fired for even one moment. To this day, it remains one of my proudest moments. The principal was fired that very day and banned from teaching in our province for the next 20 years, basically past retirement age. In court, he was charged with negligence of duty and fined 2,000 euros. All 3 students were expelled immediately. They were found guilty of identity theft as minors and sentenced to a month of community service. All the parents were charged with negligence of parental duty and given community service hours. The mother, who had said the kids should be left alone because they were just being kids, and who had encouraged her child, was charged with misdemeanor encouragement and fined 1,000 euros. That day changed everything for me. My sister and I have always been close. We're only 2 years apart, and when we were kids, we did everything together. She was always the dramatic one though. When we were children, she'd throw tantrums if she didn't get her way, but our parents always gave in because it was easier than dealing with her screaming. I guess I should have seen this coming. I'm marrying my boyfriend of 4 years, and we decided to have a medium-sized wedding with about 150 guests. Nothing too fancy, but I wanted it to be elegant and memorable. I picked out my dream venue, found the perfect dress, and started thinking about my bridal party. Naturally, I wanted my sister to be my maid of honor, along with my two cousins as bridesmaids. We've always been a tight group, going on girls' trips together and supporting each other through everything. The trouble started when I began looking at bridesmaid dresses. I spent weeks browsing different styles and colors, trying to find something that would look good on everyone and match my wedding theme. I finally settled on navy blue. It's classic, elegant, and I thought it would photograph beautifully against my white dress. Plus, it would complement the groomsmen's gray suits perfectly. I was so excited to share my idea with my sister. I found these gorgeous navy blue dresses online and sent her the pictures, along with a message saying how beautiful I thought they'd look on everyone. Her response came within minutes, and it completely blindsided me. She told me I couldn't be serious and that she wouldn't wear navy blue. She said everyone would hate the color and asked if I wanted all the bridesmaids to look like crap. Then she accused me of being one of those brides who intentionally makes their bridesmaids look bad, saying that was probably my plan all along. I stared at my phone in shock. This was not the reaction I was expecting at all. I texted back that I wasn't trying to make anyone look bad and thought navy would be beautiful on everyone since it's such a classic color. She fired back that I was wrong and started talking about how her color type was autumn. She claimed navy looks the worst on that complexion and said our cousins were also autumn types, so I'd make them look terrible too. She finished by saying I clearly didn't care about how any of us would feel. I had never heard her talk about color types before, but I didn't want to dismiss her concerns. I spent the next few hours researching this whole seasonal color thing and looking for alternatives that might work better. I sent her pictures of different blues, teal, slate blue, dusty blue, telling her I'd looked into it and these shades were supposed to work better for autumn types. I thought I was being accommodating and trying to find a compromise, but she shot down all of those options too. Then she dropped a bombshell, telling me she didn't want to be my bridesmaid anymore. She said she wanted to look pretty at my wedding, not like some washed-out background character. But here's the kicker. She's still expected to come to all the getting-ready activities with the bridal party, just without wearing a matching dress. I was confused and asked her how she could step down as maid of honor but still expect to be part of all the bridal party activities. She acted like it was obvious, saying she was still my sister and should be able to support me without having to look terrible. Then she had the nerve to tell me I should care about people feeling good at my wedding instead of being so selfish. She said I had no empathy. Here I was, trying to include her and accommodate her requests, and she was calling me selfish and unempathetic. The irony was not lost on me. I started crying right there in my kitchen. This was supposed to be one of the happiest times of my life, and my own sister was making it miserable. After I calmed down a bit, I called her back. I told her I'd been thinking about what she said, and if she stepped down as my bridesmaid, then she wasn't part of the bridal party anymore. That meant no getting ready activities, no special treatment, nothing. She'd just be a regular wedding guest. She got angry and said that wasn't fair because she was my sister. I explained that, as my sister, I thought she'd want to support me on my wedding day instead of making everything about herself. But honestly, after all this drama, I told her maybe it was better if she didn't come at all. I said every time I looked at her at my wedding now, all I'd remember was this conversation and how she made me feel terrible during what should have been an exciting time. She accused me of kicking her out of my wedding just because she didn't want to wear an ugly dress. I corrected her, saying I wasn't reconsidering her invitation because of the dress, but because of how incredibly selfish and hurtful she'd been about the whole thing. I reminded her that she'd accused me of trying to make her look bad on purpose, called me unempathetic, and then expected to still get all the benefits of being in the bridal party without any of the responsibilities. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Finally, she said maybe she wouldn't come then. I told her maybe she shouldn't. She hung up on me. The next day, my mom called me in tears, saying my sister had told her I uninvited her from my wedding over a dress color. Of course, she conveniently left out all the nasty things she said to me. When I explained the full story to my mom, she sighed and said she wasn't surprised. My mom told me my sister had always been dramatic, but this was too much, even for her. She apologized for what I was going through during my wedding planning. It turns out my cousins were perfectly fine with the navy blue dresses. When I told them what happened, they were shocked. One of them said she actually loved navy, and it was one of her favorite colors. The other asked about this autumn color type thing, saying she'd never heard my sister mention it before. So now I'm moving forward with my original plan. My cousins are excited about their dresses, and I found another close friend to step in as maid of honor. She was thrilled when I asked her and said she'd wear whatever color made me happy. When it came to my sister, she showed up at my door a week later with crocodile tears, saying she was sorry and asking if she could still come to the wedding. But by then, I had time to think about it. This wasn't just about the dress color. This was about her pattern of making everything about herself and throwing tantrums when she doesn't get her way. I told her she could come as a regular guest if she wanted, but that was it. No special treatment, no getting ready with us, nothing. And I said I wanted a genuine apology, not just sorry because mom made her feel bad. She claimed she was sorry and had just been stressed about how she'd look. I told her she wasn't really sorry, just sorry she got called out. There was a difference. She stormed off again, and I haven't heard from her since. My mom says she's telling everyone that I'm a bridezilla who cares more about dress colors than family. But honestly, I'm done caring what she thinks. My wedding is in 2 months, and I'm not letting her drama ruin it anymore. My new maid of honor and cousins have been absolutely amazing throughout this whole process. We've had so much fun picking out accessories and planning the bachelorette party. It's everything I wanted my wedding planning to be, just without the entitled drama queen making everything about herself. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.